Hardcore Lies.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Body Bags. I'm MikeyFish, and I'm your Friday host. Yeah, dude. So today I'm going to be talking about the movie Grotesque. Yeah, dude. I don't know where this is from. Is it South Korean, maybe? Maybe. I don't know. Either way, Tokyo Shock. So maybe Japanese. I'm not sure. Either way, doesn't matter. We're going to talk about this movie. This movie starts off with this new couple. They're not really a couple. They're just kind of talking. And they're walking down this tunnel, and this guy jumps out of the car, hits them with a sledgehammer, and then they wake up in this place tied up. It starts right away, and and then this guy just kind of, from there, just starts torturing these two people. That's your story, basically, to this movie. I guess technically the story is to see how much these two can endure and actually see if they actually give a shit about each other, even though they barely know each other and whatnot. That's kind of what it's going for. And, they do a pretty good job in that of, I guess. You don't really care. Really, you're only watching this movie to see some torture. And that being said, a long time ago when I watched this movie, I thought it was, super brutal. And don't get me wrong, it still is. But I just watched it 2 days ago with my buddy, and I was listening to 22 Shots, 22 Shots of Moods and Horror podcast. If you don't know it, go check it out. And they were discussing about basically watching a movie through someone else's eyes. Like when you show somebody a movie and you kind of look at it through their eyes, and it kind of changes your experience. So I kind of wanted to watch this kind of like that, and I remember talking about this movie and always talking about how graphic it is. So I showed my buddy, and we're watching it, and there's parts in it where you're like, that's really graphic, but by the end of it, I kind of didn't feel like it was as graphic as it was in my memory, I guess. That being said, don't get me wrong, it's a very graphic movie, very gross, and it definitely belongs in that, guinea pig, American guinea pig, just those really, it's a torture movie, basically, the torture porn, if you will, category, basically. And in the blood and whatnot is really good. There's a scene that has to do with nipples that part's pretty cringy, you know what I mean? But that being said, it's not as graphic as I remember. Don't let that stray you from watching this, because it definitely is still a very graphic movie. I bought it for $15. Now I'm glad that it's in my collection, and I always wanted it in my collection, so I'm happy it's here. Do I think most people would buy this for $15 and be happy with it? Probably not. I am, but I don't think most people would be. But I like movies like this in my collection because they're harder to find. I wouldn't say it's hard to find, but it's just one of those movies. It's cool to have because you could show people and they would be grossed out and whatnot. But I used to always say this when people were like, "Oh man, that movie's this movie's fucked up." I'm like, "Well, Grotesque is pretty fucked up," and I would say some other ones. I don't know if I would be saying that anymore. Maybe it was just because I was watching it through someone else's eyes, basically. But it's definitely still a messed up movie, even though I'm kind of making it seem like it's not. That being said, back to the story, they do a pretty good job on showing this guy and this girl and how they don't really know each other, and they're trying to, I wouldn't say trying to do anything, but to see who's kind of the better person out of the two, even though it's not really focused on that. You kind of start to see who's the better one out of the two, and I wouldn't say the other person's bad. It's just the situation they're in really sucks, and you don't really know how you're going to react in a situation to that, especially, when it has to do with someone else that you don't really know all that well. You kind of know them, but not really. You're kind of more of an acquaintance to them, and whatnot. And I did like that, that they kind of threw that in. The guy that's doing the torturing, he did good. He's really creepy, and, he kind of looks like a more I guess Asian version of Bill Oberst Jr. I don't know if anyone else would agree with that, but that's who he reminded me of. But yeah, the gore in this is done really, really well. Mostly all practical. There's a couple CGI parts, and it's all played through very, very straightforward and messed up until the very end of it. It gets really wacky and goofy. You'll know if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's very like out of left field. You're like, what the fuck just happened? My buddy that was watching it died laughing. He couldn't stop laughing about it. So yeah, and it just kind of threw him off. Like, what the heck was that all about? But yeah, if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, all in all, this movie is a good flick, and it's really cool to have in my collection. I'm very stoked on it. But there's not much more I could say about it. It's just basically just a torture film with a little bit of a story. Not a ton of dialogue, and the dialogue that it does have is really just kind of this guy talking to these people and them saying, please no, basically. You know how that goes. But yeah, there is a lot of fucked up stuff, like not just torture. It's like there's a little bit of mental stuff in there where he kind of like makes them think this, and then it's actually like this and whatnot. So he's kind of just mind fucking them too, along with messing their bodies up. And that was pretty, I mean, it was alright. I mean, it's kind of like a slow, boring part of the movie. You really just want to see the torture. That sounds fucked up. But yeah, that's pretty much what you get with this movie. If I had to rate this movie, it's pretty, I mean, it's alright. I probably won't watch it again for another few years. I'd say it's probably like a 5.5 out of 10. It's not a great movie, but it's cool to have, if that makes sense. It does to me, whatever. Anyways, guys, that's Grotesque, and I'm MikeyFish Horror, and I will see you guys next Friday. Thanks for joining me, dudes. Later, guys.